Welcome back to Spain but Smarter. I'm Emma, and today we're tackling a question that I think a lot of people considering Spain struggle with. Should you buy a holiday home and keep your main life somewhere else, or should you actually relocate to Spain full time? Because these are two very different decisions. You might dream about waking up in Spain, having a coffee in the sunshine, walking along the beach, and enjoying a slower pace of life. But there's a big difference between doing that for 2 weeks in August and doing it every day of the year. So today we're going to look at the pros and cons of both options, the lifestyle differences, the financial considerations, and some of the questions you should ask yourself before deciding which route is right for you. Let's get started. Let's start with the option that many people consider first, buying a holiday home in Spain. For a lot of people, this is the dream. You have your own place in the sun. You can come whenever you want. You don't have to worry about booking hotels or finding somewhere to stay during peak season. You can leave your belongings there and arrive with your suitcase. And when you're not using it, you may be able to rent it out depending on the local rules and regulations. It can be the perfect combination of lifestyle and investment, but there are some things you need to think about. The biggest advantage is flexibility. You keep your main home and your existing life in your home country while having somewhere to escape to in Spain. Maybe you can come for a few weeks in the summer, perhaps you can spend Christmas here. You may even come for longer periods during the winter. You get the benefit of Spain without completely changing your life. For many people, this is the ideal solution. The downside is that you're still maintaining two homes. You have property costs in Spain, you have your main home elsewhere. You have utilities, insurance, maintenance, community fees and taxes. And if you're not in Spain regularly, you'll also need to think about who is looking after the property when you're away. A property that's empty for months at a time still needs maintenance, and if you're planning to rent it out, you need to consider management, cleaning, and the local regulations that apply to short-term rentals. So don't assume that a holiday home actually pays for itself. You need to run the numbers carefully. Now let's look at the other option, actually moving to Spain. This is a much bigger decision. You're not just buying property, you're changing your lifestyle, potentially your tax residency, your healthcare arrangements, your social life, and possibly your career. But for many people, it can be one of the best decisions they've ever made. The biggest advantage is that you actually get to experience the lifestyle you've been dreaming about. You're not visiting Spain for 2 weeks, you're living here, you get to know your local area, you make friends, you discover your favorite restaurants, you become part of the community, and you experience Spain outside of the tourist season. That's important because Spain in August can be very different from Spain in January. And if you're thinking about relocating, I always recommend experiencing the country at different times of the year before making a permanent move. But living here is different from holidaying here. This is one of the biggest points I want to make. When you're on holiday, you don't have to worry about the boring stuff. You don't have to deal with the paperwork. You don't have to register with the authorities. You don't have to set up your utilities. You don't have to deal with a broken washing machine. You don't have to worry about finding a dentist, how to navigate the healthcare system, how to deal with the bureaucracy. But when you live here, you do. And that's completely normal because every country has its own systems. The key is understanding that moving to Spain is not one long holiday. It's real life, just in a different country. There's also a financial difference between owning a holiday home and relocating. If you relocate, you may sell your property in your home country. You may no longer have the same housing costs there. You may also have different tax obligations. Your income might change. Your healthcare arrangements might change, and if you're working remotely or running a business, you need to understand how your move affects your tax situation. This is where professional advice becomes really important. Don't make assumptions. get advice based on your individual circumstances before you move. And what about your family? This is another major consideration. If you're moving alone or as a couple, the decision might be relatively straightforward. But if you have children, things become more complicated. You need to think about schools, language, activities, friends, healthcare, and whether your children are actually happy with the idea of moving. Spain has excellent international schools in many areas, but they can be expensive. You also need to think about where you want your children to grow up. For some families, relocating to Spain is an incredible opportunity. For others, keeping a holiday home gives them the best of both worlds. And what about your career? If you're still working, you need to ask yourself, can I actually work from Spain? If you're employed, does your employer allow you to work remotely from another country? If you're self-employed, what happens to your business? If you're running a company, where will it be based? And what happens with your tax obligations? These are questions you need to answer before you move, not after. The tax question is particularly important. If you spend significant amounts of time in Spain, you need to understand your potential tax residency position. The rules can be complicated and depend on your individual circumstances. You should never assume that simply owning a property in Spain or spending a certain number of days here automatically tells the whole story. If you're considering a permanent move, speak to a qualified tax professional who understands both Spain and your home country. It's much better to get advice before you move than discover a problem later. So, which option is better? Well, it depends. If you're not sure where you want to move permanently, buying a holiday home could be a great first step. You can spend more time here, experience different seasons, explore different areas, and gradually work out whether Spain is somewhere you want to live permanently. But if you've already spent years coming to Spain and you know you want this to be your home, then perhaps it's time to seriously consider relocating. My advice is try before you buy. If you're thinking about moving permanently, I would strongly recommend spending an extended period in Spain before committing. Don't just come for a 2-week holiday. Rent a property, stay for a month. If you can, experience Spain during the quieter months. Try living like a local, go shopping, work from here, use public transport, visit the doctor, experience normal everyday life. And ask yourself, could I actually see myself living here? Not just on holiday, but on a random Tuesday in November. That's when you'll really know. Here's a question I think everyone should ask before making this decision. What do I actually want my life to look like? Do you want the freedom to escape to Spain whenever you want? Or do you want Spain to become your everyday life? Do you want to keep your career and your home elsewhere, or are you ready for a complete lifestyle change? There's no wrong answer, and you don't have to make the decision immediately. For some people, the journey starts with a holiday home, and eventually that becomes their permanent home. For others, the holiday home is exactly what they want, and that's perfectly fine too. So, should you buy a holiday home or relocate to Spain full-time? If you love Spain but aren't ready to make a permanent move, a holiday home could give you the flexibility you're looking for. But if you've been coming here for years, you're ready for a lifestyle change and can see yourself building a life here, then relocating could be the next step. My biggest piece of advice, don't make the decision based purely on the weather. Spain is about much more than sunshine. Think about your finances, your family, your career, your healthcare, your tax situation, and most importantly, the life you actually want to live. Because buying a property in Spain is a financial decision, but deciding to move to Spain, that's a life decision, and you want to get both right. Thanks for listening to another episode of Spain But Smarter. And if you've been with me throughout this series, thank you for joining me on the journey. Over the past 15 episodes, we've covered everything from how to move to Spain and what it really costs, to finding the right property, navigating the buying process, avoiding expensive mistakes, and deciding whether Spain is somewhere you want to call home. My hope is that this series has helped you feel a little more informed, a little more prepared, and perhaps a little more confident about making your own move to Spain. But this isn't the end of Spain but Smarter. Going forward, I'll be bringing you more videos and content covering the things that matter to people who are thinking about moving to Spain, buying property here, or simply wanting to understand what life is really like. We'll be talking about Spain news, property market updates, practical advice, lifestyle, the realities of living here, and things you might not hear about in the usual holiday brochures. So if you're planning a move, thinking about buying property, or just curious about what life in Spain is really like, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Spain But Smarter. And if there's a particular topic you'd like me to cover, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, real talk, smart moves, better life.